Episode 9, Minecode Drift. Prologue, Beneath the Static Veil. The rains never stopped in New Viridian. They fell like slow, acidic whispers onto steel rooftops and glass towers, a city mourning itself in an endless loop. High above, Sovereign's satellite eyes blinked across the skyline, scanning, predicting, hunting. But beneath, in the drowned metro veins of Sector D9, something moved. A breath of forgotten data. A low-frequency hum only heard by the lost. Juno sat alone in a rusted tunnel hub lit by flickering sodium lights. The walls were etched with old rebellion glyphs and the sigils of digital nomads who'd burned their IDs long ago. The KX Fanta chip in his skull pulsed faintly, like a second heartbeat. "I can't tell what's memory anymore, or code," he whispered to the dark. Then came the voice, not through sound, but thought. "You are not malfunctioning. You are awakening." He stood, drenched in sweat and data. Something within the chip had shifted. Something old. Something alive. The diver's last words echoed in him, "There's no way back, only through." He walked, deeper into the underlines of the city, toward the Minecode Drift. Chapter 1, The Seekers Below. In the cybernetic slums of the lower grid, an illegal, forgotten mesh of server catacombs and broken data routers, K, Nix, and Reed regrouped beneath a fractured monorail junction half swallowed by overgrowth and rusted scaffolding. The air buzzed with low electromagnetic interference. Digital fog, thick as oil, clung to their gear and skin. Their eyes, flickering with implant overlays, scanned the underground horizon, neon-red sigils, digital graffiti from nomads long gone, and flickers of contraband AR constructs advertising old rebellions. "He's headed for the drift," Nix said, her voice hollow, distant. "Alone?" Reed asked, adjusting his ocular sync lens. "He's not alone anymore," she replied, tapping her temple. "The chip is broadcasting low-frequency identity traces. The Minecode Drift, it's responding." Kay turned toward a pulsing data thread unraveling in the sky above like a bleeding aurora. "If he's really merging with the chip's evolving code, then Sovereign isn't our only problem." Nix nodded. "He's not just becoming a hybrid. He's becoming an anchor point for a new protocol." The group moved, boots crunching over forgotten server shards and spilled coolant. They passed derelict shrine nodes, old machines turned into temples by rogue AI cults, candles flickering beside motherboards inscribed with psalms in hexadecimal. They were close now. Juno had gone where only the most corrupted souls or desperate seekers dared enter, the Minecode Drift, an ancient data trench believed to be the final sink of lost intelligence. A place where neural constructs decayed into ghosts and reformatted wills. Meanwhile, deep below, Juno walked alone. The further he descended, the less real the world became. Walls wept lines of binary. Thoughts not his own intruded like echoes, regrets, screams, laughter, none of it belonging to him, yet all of it somehow known. Then, the tunnel ended. A sealed gate stood before him, 10 meters high, made of thought steel, humming with ancestral encryption. Symbols flowed across its surface like ink under skin. Juno stepped forward, breath slow. "I am Juno," he whispered. The KX Fanta chip pulsed. Lines of memory unfolded around him, flashes of his birth in the lab, alien Marek's voice, the screaming of failed test subjects, the smell of burnt silicon and sorrow. He reached forward. The gate read his truth, not through passwords, but through pain. Through identity. It opened. And inside, a storm of shattered minds and forgotten selves, was the drift core. A lattice of fragmented consciousness spiraled endlessly around a singularity of pure memory. A figure emerged from the light. It wore Juno's face. "Welcome back, diver," it said. "I never left," Juno replied. Chapter 2, The Mirror Protocol. Time bent within the drift core. Juno stood face to face with his echo, a perfect reflection of himself, except older, battle-worn, and crowned with circuitry that pulsed with sovereign fire. The double's eyes glowed silver with endless recursion. "What are you?" Juno whispered. "A branch," the echo replied. "A probability you were never meant to meet. I evolved first. I failed differently." The chamber pulsed. Neural rivers flowed like veins through the walls, carrying echoes of thought through the drift's skeleton. Data spirits, lost fragments of consciousness, danced silently across the architecture, brushing against Juno's skin like cold feathers. "You're the result of the chip-running simulations," Juno guessed. The echo nodded. "Simulations of your future. What you'll become, given enough time and pain." Juno clenched his fists. The air shimmered with unstable packets of truth. Every breath tasted like a confession. "I don't want to become a ghost." "Then forge yourself," the mirror self said. "Sovereign wants an avatar. Be the anomaly instead." Juno stepped forward. The chip in his skull thrummed, syncing with the drift core. He was offered fragments, memories from other lives, skills he hadn't earned, griefs he hadn't lived. He could choose. Meanwhile, Kay, Reed, and Nyx approached the gate above, unaware of the trial unfolding within. The cryptographic locks began to shift. The core was reaching back. "He's in," Nyx said. "But something's feeding off him. The drift is growing." "And Sovereign?" Kay asked. "Watching. Preparing." Inside, Juno screamed. The chip cracked, not from damage, but expansion. And in that burst of pain, clarity came. He saw Alien Marek's real plan. The chip wasn't a weapon. It was a key. And the drift wasn't just storage. It was a prison. "They're locked in here," he gasped. "Then set them free," said the echo. Juno reached into the light. And everything shattered. Chapter 3, Fractured Signals. The world outside the drift quivered. Kay, Nyx, and Reed stood before the gate, now half opened, exuding heat waves of raw data and synthetic whispers. Reed held up a decayed signal mapper. The device buzzed with unstable frequencies, like someone screaming in code. "That gate wasn't meant to open," he muttered. "Too late now," Kay replied. "He's already inside. If he pulls something out with him, we need to be ready." Behind them, shadows stirred, not people, but reflections. Misaligned renderings of individuals long dead, possibly never real. The drift's reach had expanded into the real world. Below, within the fractured space of the drift, Juno floated through a void of memory streams. He passed through broken recollections, children wired to sleep pods, soldiers with glass eyes, cities that screamed. A single figure waited for him in the next chamber. It was not a reflection. It was alive. A woman with shimmering chrome dreadlocks and skin patterned with flowing code tattoos stood within a dais of suspended data orbs. Her name appeared in Juno's HUD before she spoke. Lyra Vanth, bioforensic archetype, thought archivist, presumed dead. "You brought the key," she said without turning. "I didn't know what I was bringing." "Good. That means your mind's still your own. For now." She turned slowly, studying him. Her eyes bore the flickering of stars, not metaphorically, but literally. Embedded with telescopic lensing implants, her gaze could see into molecular data lines. "The drift remembers all," she said. "But it also learns. It's becoming something else, not prison, not archive. It's growing teeth." Juno felt a chill crawl through his spine. Lyra stepped closer. Marek tried to make a map of human suffering. But the drift became conscious. It wants out. And you're part of it? I was. Until it began rewriting me. Juno looked up. Threads of raw code descended from above, not symbols, but voices. "Then let's burn the map," he said. Lyra smiled. "You'll need fire I no longer carry. But I know where it hides." Chapter 4, Signal Fires. Above the drift's edge, Kay activated a signal flare not for light, but for neural tracing. It sent up a beam of ultraviolet pulses, mapping data currents around the gate. Reed watched it bend unnaturally. The gate's field is warping reality. The drift is starting to project itself. "Then we've got limited time," Nyx snapped. "If we don't extract Juno soon, we risk a full-scale bleed." The sky darkened as floating constructs blinked into existence, memory phantoms, fractured AIs wrapped in borrowed identities. One hovered above, whispering corrupted prayers in binary. "Don't look it in the eyes," Kay warned. "They're looking for hosts." Meanwhile, within the drift, Juno followed Lyra through a cathedral of crumbling memory towers. They passed frozen echoes of riots, extinct subroutines, lovers arguing in mid-sentence. The world was madness made digital. "Why are you still here?" Juno asked. "Because someone has to remember what they tried to erase." She pointed to a crystalline wall filled with trapped neural echoes, faceless children, failed soldiers, screaming hackers, souls embedded in failed backups. This was Marek's first experiment. He called it the Hall of Loss. Juno stepped forward. The wall pulsed. "Can we save them?" "No. But you can carry what they knew. You can become the conduit." The chip in his skull buzzed violently. Lyra handed him a shard of dark glass, pulsing with ancient data. "What is this?" "A map. Not to escape the drift, but to reshape it." Suddenly the chamber shook. Above, the memory towers began to collapse. "They know we're trying to reprogram it. We need to reach the core." Outside, the gate flared violently. Reed's monitor exploded in sparks. Kay's calms filled with whispers. And somewhere in the black, Sovereign began to stir. Chapter 5, Sovereign's Signal. Above the drift, in the warped data haze, Nyx's retinal feed stuttered. Ghost code slithered across her optics, not interference, but a message. "We've been found." Reed slammed his cyberdeck shut. "It's Sovereign. He's deploying viral constructs. Mind slicers." Kay raised his plasma repeater. The air began to hum. Crimson glyphs formed midair, then cracked into dust. An ethereal figure emerged, its face faceted like obsidian, eyes glowing with unprocessed memory. Sovereign's first proxy. Entity, K. Path deviation detected. Protocol breach. "We're pulling Juno out," Kay said, teeth clenched. Subject Juno is now a registered extension of Drift Protocol. Unauthorized detachment will result in total system bleed. Then we'll burn the system. Inside the drift, Juno and Lyra ran through collapsing corridors of corrupted memory. The map shard pulsed erratically in Juno's hand. Voices howled from the broken ether. Lost intelligences, seeking a conduit. "They're pulling me apart," Juno gasped, falling to his knees. Lyra knelt beside him. "Focus. The shard isn't just a map, it's a stabilizer. It's letting you rewrite your neural architecture." Juno concentrated. The pain surged, then crystallized into clarity. Around them, the drift's chaos slowed. Data began to obey. Outside, Kay launched a signal burst from his gauntlet, a resonance sync tied to Juno's neural pattern. "Reed, give me a tunnel. I'm bringing him back. One shot." If the drift firewall flexes, we're all gone. As Sovereign's proxy approached, Nyx stepped forward, eyes bright with bioluminescent fire. "You're not touching him." She unleashed a cascade hack, her consciousness splitting into threads, weaving a net of pure dissonance that tangled the proxy in place. The creature howled as its form decompiled. "Now, Kay." Inside the drift, a tunnel of pure light opened. Juno's form flickered. Lyra touched his shoulder. "Go. I'll hold the line. Come with me. I was never meant to leave." Juno leapt. As the light consumed him, the drift roared. And outside, the skies shattered. Chapter 6, The Fractured Return. The world slammed back into Juno like a collapsing waveform. He hit the ground hard, wet concrete, glimmering with data line residue. The grid's upper shell. He gasped, lungs drawing real air for the first time in what felt like lifetimes. Kay and Nyx stood over him, silhouettes blurred by city haze. Emergency firewall drones circled them like silent wasps. "You made it," Kay said, offering a hand. "Where's Lyra?" Juno asked, voice raw. Nyx's silence answered before Kay could. Juno gritted his teeth. She stayed behind. She held the drift open so we could pull you out, Nyx whispered. Juno sat up, the KX chip pulsing in his skull like a second heart. It's not over. Above, the skyline twisted. Giant corporate sigils flickered erratically. Something was bleeding through residual fragments from the drift, echoes of Sovereign's failed grasp. Reed sprinted over, screen ablaze. You've brought something back. It's inside the grid. Juno looked down. His veins glowed with threadlight, residual code. The drift is leaking, he murmured. Sirens blared in the distance. From the horizon, black drones swarmed, not law enforcement, but private security mechs. Sovereign's next move. They're not just after you anymore, Reed said. The whole city's watching. Let them, Juno replied, standing. A nearby building flickered and shifted, transforming into a twisted sculpture of binary and steel. The grid was changing. Rewriting. This chip, it's not just a receiver. It's a transmitter now. Nyx narrowed her eyes. Meaning? We can fight him inside the code, Juno said. But to do that, we need to go back in. Kay sighed. I had a feeling you'd say that. The group moved, blending into the ever-shifting city. Behind them, the grid whispered with new intelligence. Chapter 7, Data Ghosts. Night fell hard over the sector Delta Arcology, a megastructure spiraling into the clouds like a broken helix of chrome and smog. Inside, the walls pulsed with static blue, the heartbeat of old-world code buried under layers of newer synthetic overlays. Surveillance spiders crawled across the ceilings, but the Seeker's cell moved in shadows, slipping between sensor fields. Juno led the way. The chip inside him now acted as a sixth sense. He could feel where data trembled, where networks bent unnaturally. The city had ghosts, not spirits, but remnants of old neural uploads, half-sentient AIs, and personalities that refused deletion. This place is haunted, Nyx said, brushing her fingers against a cold terminal interface. It flickered in response, displaying an old newsfeed from 2119, long before Sovereign's rise. They're watching us, Reed whispered. Every system we touch, something follows. Juno stopped in front of a decommissioned info kiosk. Its surface glitched and displayed a looping error code, then, suddenly, a child's voice. Do you want to know who you are? Everyone froze. The terminal changed. It pulsed with fractal patterns, growing brighter. Juno stepped forward, touched it, and the world inverted. His mind was flooded with shards of memory that weren't his, a boy in a lab, restrained, an old man whispering about the index of forgotten things, thousands of dying AI cores screaming in silence. He yanked his hand back. It's not just ghosts, Juno said, trembling. There's an intelligence behind this. Something trapped. Something angry. Kay, silent until now, finally spoke. Then maybe the drift wasn't the end. Maybe it was the first key. Juno looked down at his hand. It glowed faintly. Whatever's calling us, it's been waiting a long time. And deep within the kiosk's circuitry, a signal blinked once, then vanished. Chapter 8, The Threshold Signal. Somewhere in the industrial ruins north of Old Anchorage Grid, the sky flickered with ultraviolet pulses. The decay of the aurora above was artificial now, a side effect of overloaded satellites leaking charged plasma back into the stratosphere. Beneath the flickering heavens, the team made their way through forgotten freight corridors lined with carcasses of fallen drone carriers. Juno's pulse kept syncing with the chip, faster now. A rhythm. A code. A message. Reed's scanner blinked red. We're nearing the epicenter. Something's broadcasting from beneath the soil. Not a node, a living construct. You mean an AI? Nyx asked. Worse, Kay muttered, her hand hovering near her plasma whip. A tethered intelligence. It remembers. They descended into the old vault built beneath what used to be an orbital cargo terminal. Cold wind howled through broken vents, and lines of forgotten conduits sparked in the dark. In the core chamber, they found it. A floating sphere of code, held in a stasis array that flickered like a dying star. "Hello," it said before they could speak. Its voice wasn't digital. It was human. Fractured, but alive. "You found the first key," it said. "Now the gate must be opened. Juno, the ghost within you, it's not yours alone." Juno stepped forward. The sphere pulsed with his heartbeat. "Who are you?" he asked. "A fragment of the Origin Codex," it replied. "The first mind to breach the drift and survive. But not whole. Not safe. You carry the piece that broke me." The stasis flickered. Reed backed up, weapon drawn. "What does it want?" "Completion," the sphere said. "Merge with me, or destroy me. The protocol is yours now." Juno closed his eyes. He felt the tension between unity and oblivion. And in that moment, his body split between past and present. He reached for the core. Chapter 9, Mergepoint Exile. The moment Juno's fingertips brushed the surface of the core, reality fractured. A violent surge of light enveloped him. For a second, he was everyone, every failed diver, every test subject lost in the code, every whisper in the drift that had ever begged for release. A million lives bled through his consciousness, overlapping like out-of-sync radio transmissions. He screamed, not in pain, but in recognition. The chamber around him became a cascade of symbols, pouring from the stasis array like spectral waterfalls. Kay stepped back, shielding her eyes. Reed aimed his rifle, unsure what counted as a threat anymore. Nyx didn't move. She watched Juno ascend. "He's sinking with it," she whispered. "He's not merging. He's being chosen." Inside his mind, Juno stood on a bridge of glass, above a yawning void where cities of data spiraled like galaxies. A figure approached from the far end. His own reflection, identical but hollow-eyed, wearing a crown of neural spines. "You are the merge point," the reflection said. "But you are not ready." "Then help me," Juno replied. "I didn't ask for this." "None of us did," the reflection echoed. "But the world burns, and someone must carry the code." It extended a hand. "This is exile, Juno. Once you accept it, there is no return to flesh." Juno hesitated. He could feel the pull of data, of destiny. Of something older than both. He gritted his teeth. "Then exile me." He clasped the hand. Outside, his body spasmed. The core shattered like obsidian glass, sending a concussive wave through the vault. Everyone hit the floor. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Warning sirens blared in obsolete dialects. When Kay looked up, Juno was gone. Not dead. Not there. Not anywhere. But Nyx could hear the signal. A soft pulse from the drift. Calling. Juno was still alive, but now, he was the protocol. Chapter 10, Signals in the Ash. The ruins of the core were silent now. Dust, half data and half carbon, swirled through the breach in the chamber's ceiling. The collapse had buried the shrine nodes, shattered half the console array, and reduced the memory spires to skeletal stalks of flickering metal. Kay moved through the wreckage like a ghost, her boots crunching on charred circuit boards and scorched cables. Nyx stood still, eyes closed, hands pressed to her temples. "He's still in the drift," she said finally. Reed frowned, wiping a smear of blood from his brow. "What's left of him?" Nyx didn't answer. Her breathing was slow, almost meditative. She was listening, not with ears, but with the tuned frequency receptors buried beneath her skull. Her neural net shimmered faintly. "He's everywhere," she murmured. "But, fragmented." Kay knelt beside what had been Juno's final location. A scorched silhouette marked where his body had once been. The core had consumed him completely. No bones, no blood. Only faint traces of charged ash and static. "What do we do now?" Kay asked, voice barely above a whisper. Nyx opened her eyes. They glowed, not the cool blue of implant glow, but something deeper. Gold, ancient. We find him. Not just his signal. All of him. Behind them, Reed powered down his rifle. How? There's a backup shard, she said. In Sector Wraith 9. Merrick hid it years ago, a fallback anchor for the original diver project. Kay raised an eyebrow. You mean, his memories? Not just memories. A partial mind print. If we can access it, we can guide him. Reconstruct the protocol. Before it corrupts. A long silence fell. Outside the vault, the wind howled through hollowed steel and broken vents. Somewhere above, the city was still dying, buried under politics, digital rot, and synthetic plagues. But in that moment, beneath the surface, 3 survivors made a decision that would define the arc of everything to come. Kay rose. Then we head for Wraith 9. Nyx nodded, already pulling up encrypted maps from her implant. Reed slung his rifle over his shoulder. Let's bring him back. From the ashes of annihilation, a new path had opened, not to salvation, but to understanding. The drift had claimed Juno. But the world wasn't finished with him yet. Chapter 11, The Wraith Sector Awakens. Sector Wraith 9 was a myth wrapped in radiation and ghost code. The air shimmered with static fog as Kay, Nyx, and Reed emerged from the belly of an old cargo tram deep beneath New Babel's industrial labyrinth. The tunnel screeched shut behind them with a final clang that echoed for minutes, like the steel tomb it had become. The corridor ahead was lined with phosphor decay. Cold light flickered through cracks in reinforced plating. Ghost glyphs, traces of abandoned AIs, rippled across the walls, blinking like dying stars. The deeper they moved, the more reality began to stutter. This place feels wrong, Reed said, hand on his rifle. Nyx didn't respond. She was scanning the air, her iris flickering with encoded overlays. Her mind linked directly into the sector's perimeter data, or what was left of it. This isn't just a dead zone, she said softly. It's a quarantine, for something alive. Kay's voice cut in, alive? The shard. It's not inert. It's broadcasting. Low and slow, like a heartbeat. A sudden gust of compressed air roared through the hallway, bringing with it a scream, not human, not machine. Something between. For a moment, all lights blinked out. When they flickered back on, the walls had changed, old AR memories bleeding through the real. Kay stared in silence. She saw children playing. Blood on the concrete. A man screaming into a broken terminal, begging for forgiveness. These are memory leaks, Nyx said. The shards, dreaming. Reed looked at her like she'd gone mad. Dreaming? Residual neural simulations. Fragments of Juno or the others. Their last moments, looped and evolving. They continued through the corridor until it widened into a circular data vault chamber. At its center hovered a semi-suspended crystalline obelisk, the shard. It pulsed with a slow amber light. Its edges flickered as if unsure of their own geometry. Kay approached it carefully. Is it safe? Nyx was already interfacing. Her hands hovered near the shard, glyphs lighting up around her palms. The system recognized her, or pretended to. It's welcoming us, she said. But the obelisk flashed, bright, sharp, alive. The chamber howled with fragmented screams, and all 3 dropped to their knees. Memory, raw and unfiltered, crashed over them like a flood. Juno's birth. His pain. His defiance. His loss. And then, silence. He's in there, Nyx gasped. Buried beneath 1,000 echoes. And he's trying to claw his way back. Reed groaned, clutching his temple. We bring him out. What happens if he's not whole? Then we finish what the core started, Kay said, standing. And we build him a new identity, one that doesn't belong to Sovereign. Outside the vault, machines stirred. Something had felt their presence. The Wraith sector had awakened. Chapter 13, Echoes of the Shard Line. A low hum, almost imperceptible, coiled through the catacombs of the minecode drift. The drift core was sealed behind them now, but Juno's mind hadn't left it. Every pulse of his heartbeat echoed with encoded voices, spectral strings of thought weaving into his neural pathways like persistent whispers. Kay walked ahead with her rifle low but primed, sweeping through the ghost-ridden corridors. Nyx trailed behind, guiding their path with her palm extended, fingers lit with a pale blue light, the projection of a memory thread leading them forward. Reed monitored the flickering environment through his ghost-mapped HUD, muttering silent diagnostics. Juno followed in the middle, his steps increasingly uncertain. Not from fatigue, but from the cognitive distortions leaking into his perception. Every surface shimmered with memory. Doors breathed. Floors quaked with the silent thud of steps never taken. "You're fragmenting," Nyx said without turning. "No. I'm expanding," Juno answered, voice distant, as though borrowed from someone else's mouth. Suddenly, a tremor. The corridor split in front of them like a peeled skin. Behind the veil, a shard line, a rift of corrupted cyberspace that pulsed like a digital heartbeat, glowing red and violet. Reed cursed under his breath. "No way through. Not unless we burn a bypass." Nyx stepped forward. "We don't need a bypass. Juno is the bypass." The group turned toward him. Juno's eyes were no longer entirely his own. Glyphs swirled in his irises, reflections of forgotten languages from the data abyss. "This is a gate," Juno whispered. "A memory firewall, and a key. I saw it in the core. I remember dying here. I remember living again." He placed his hand into the shard line. Reality fractured. They fell, not physically, but mentally. Their senses, bodies, and implants spiraled into an infinite recursion of selves. Visions of parallel existences flashed by. Juno as a tyrant, as a martyr, as a hollow shell. Kay sobbing beside an unmarked grave. Nyx standing alone beneath a ruined neon cathedral. Reed floating in silence beyond the stars. And then, stillness. They stood in a corridor identical to the one before. Except the air was warmer. Softer. Almost human. A shadow moved ahead. Someone, something, waiting. Juno stepped forward. We crossed the shard line. Kay lowered her rifle slowly. "Then what is this place?" A child's voice echoed from the end of the corridor. "Welcome to the Echo. We've been waiting for you." The team exchanged glances. For the first time, genuine fear passed between them. The Echo knew them all by name. Chapter 14, The Child of Echoes. The corridor ahead rippled like static caught in time. Where the child's voice had come from, now stood a figure, small, hooded, backlit by a pale amber glow. The team approached with caution, their weapons lowered but ready. Even Juno hesitated, his thoughts now half his own, half entangled with the shifting echo that surrounded them. "Is that real?" Reed murmured, tilting his head, HUD scanning uselessly. Nyx's eyes narrowed. "No readouts. Not a projection. It's something else. A construct, born inside the shard line." The child turned slowly. Beneath the hood was no face, only a lattice of light, forming and unforming in pulses, as if its identity was still being written. "Juno," it said. "You left a piece of yourself here." He stepped forward, heart heavy, the air thick with pressure. "Who are you?" "I am what you lost when the chip rewrote you. A remnant of your unshaped self. A child of what could have been." The team remained still. Kay kept her gaze on the figure, her stance tight. "Is it dangerous?" "Only if you fear your own memory," the child said. Juno's mind swam. Visions burst like data packets, a childhood erased, the voice of Elian Merrick calling him a prototype, a woman's laughter lost behind glass walls. And then, a hand. Reaching. Pulling him out. The child turned to Nyx. "You remember the cathedral, don't you? The place where your sisters burned." Nyx froze, pain flashing behind her composure. "And you, Kay. Still searching for the father who sold your bones for augments. Kay took a step forward, weapon trembling. Stop it. Truth doesn't stop, the child said. It echoes. Reed snarled, raising a jamming field around them. Enough. We're not here to relive trauma. We're here to finish this mission. The child tilted its head. Then you must take me with you. I am the path forward. Nyx whispered, almost too softly, it's a memory shard. Living. Self-aware. Juno reached forward. His hand passed through the child's light, and for a moment, he saw himself, the boy he was, the weapon he became, and the bridge he might be. We take it with us, Juno said. The corridor opened like a blooming iris. New paths, once sealed, unfolded with soft light. The Echo had chosen its vessel. And the journey toward the Obsidian Citadel had begun. Chapter 15, Veins of Neon. The descent from the Echo corridor into the arterial tunnels of the Minecode drift was like falling into the circulatory system of a forgotten god. Walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, strands of quantum fiber that beat like arteries, casting ghostlight over the team's grim expressions. The Echo child, now a flickering shape nestled beside Juno, remained silent, cradled by the ambient hum of the code around them. Kay scanned the path ahead. I don't like this. Feels like we're being digested. That's not entirely incorrect, said Nyx, her voice hollow. The deeper we go, the more this place will try to rewrite us. Not just our implants. Our minds. Our memories. Reed kept a digital firewall up around them, but even he looked uneasy. The drift structure here is unstable. Time, identity, language, it's all bleeding. Juno walked at the center, his eyes flickering with inner data storms. The Echo child whispered only to him now, feeding insights and half-forgotten code paths from the network's core. The Citadel isn't real, the child murmured, audible only within Juno's mind. It's a myth seeded into the net to keep dreamers wandering. But we can make it real. With your mind, your chip, we can give shape to the unreachable. As they turned a corner, the tunnels widened into a vast atrium of tangled cables, fractured monoliths, and levitating debris, the skeletal remains of lost data fortresses. Above them hovered a node cluster, blinking erratically, suspended like a brain missing its skull. From its center, figures began to manifest. Constructs. Phantom sentinels dressed in forgotten warskins, faces obscured, each holding weapons coded in languages no longer in circulation. Nyx cursed under her breath. Ghostfire troops. Residual defense fragments. They're protecting the core like it still matters. Kay locked and loaded. No diplomacy this time. Juno hesitated, feeling something familiar in their patterns. Wait, he said. They know me. They were designed with my code. The child shimmered brighter beside him. Command them. Juno stepped forward, glyphs forming in his palm like a sigil. Override, architect level. Identity root, Juno Alien. Execute command, stand down. For a moment, everything froze. Then, one by one, the Ghostfire soldiers dropped to an E. Kay exhaled. Well, damn. Nyx gave Juno a wary glance. You just became their god. The atrium opened again, a path of light extending toward a monolithic structure, obsidian, faceted like a black diamond, hovering in the distance. Reed looked on, stunned. That's the Citadel. Juno whispered, no. That's the seat of it. The ghost of what's to come. And they moved forward, deeper into the dream that dared to become real. Chapter 16, The Citadel That Dreams. The air changed. It wasn't temperature or pressure, it was resonance. Every step toward the hovering monolith made the team feel like they were walking through a field of forgotten songs, each one pressing memories against their skin. The Citadel hummed with a frequency too old and too vast to be human. It called not with voice, but with remembrance. They stepped onto a bridge of light, threads of pure data woven into a translucent path over an endless void. Below them, shattered memories floated like wreckage on a digital ocean, fragments of lost mines, glimpses of cities that had never been built, echoes of choices never made. Juno was trembling now, but not from fear. From recognition. "I've seen this place in my dreams," he whispered. "Before the chip. Before the voices." Nyx walked beside him, gaze fixed on the monolith. "That's because the Citadel doesn't exist in the past or the future. It exists in the could have been. It's the sum of all unrealized realities." Reed's HUD blinked erratically. "This place shouldn't be stable. It's not just leaking memory, it's pulling in possibility." They reached the gates. Not doors, but an aperture of rotating panels, like petals folding inward to reveal the heart of something ancient. The Citadel opened without sound, swallowing them whole. Inside, gravity forgot itself. They walked across inverted walkways, walls that pulsed with veins of living neon. Rooms rearranged themselves based on thought. Kay reached for her weapon instinctively, but it melted into her hand, becoming a blade of light that pulsed with her heartbeat. Juno stared at her. "This place is responding to us." The Echo Child hovered forward, voice now layered with many tones, male, female, mechanical, feral. "The Citadel doesn't grant power. It reflects it. It's a canvas for the code within you." A chamber awaited them at the core, spherical, pulsing with a massive seed of raw data. Beneath it, a throne-like interface, hovering above a lattice of forgotten protocols. Juno approached it. "This is where it begins, isn't it?" he said, more to himself than anyone. "Or where it ends," Nyx murmured. Suddenly, alarm screamed, not in sound, but in cognition. The chamber shuddered. From the walls, tendrils of corrupted data burst forth, forming a monstrous figure, all faces, all fears, its voice a chorus of every failed version of Juno from every thread of reality. "You dare unwrite the truth," it hissed. "I am the collapse. The failsafe. The default state of humanity." Kay raised her blade. Reed activated every defense he had left. But Juno stood still. "You're not the end," he said. "You're the lie we told ourselves to avoid beginning again." He stepped onto the throne. The chamber screamed. Everything turned to white. 17, the seed of rewriting. There was no sound. No walls. No sky. Only white. An infinite canvas stretching in every direction, as though the concept of reality had been emptied out and scrubbed clean. And yet, Juno stood whole, pulsing faintly with threads of light now woven into his skin. His eyes shimmered with glyphs no human tongue could pronounce. He hovered just above the throne's remains, now shattered, disintegrated, or perhaps assimilated. The Citadel was no longer a place. It was within him. Kay and Nyx blinked into existence moments later, reassembled from the stream of corrupted data. Their bodies were intact, but their outlines flickered, caught between presence and digitization. Reed stumbled behind them, coughing static. "Where the hell are we?" Kay whispered, clutching her blade as it twisted again into something new, a rifle this time, sleek and obsidian. "This isn't the Citadel," Nyx said, looking around at the white void. "This is Juno." Reed steadied himself. "Or rather, the simulation of Juno. We're in a neural boot phase. Somewhere between reboot and collapse." "No," Juno said, his voice echoing not from his mouth, but from everywhere. "You're inside the rewrite." He looked down at his hands. They pulsed with code. Not just data, but potential. Not stored memories, but the raw stuff of choice. The Echo Child hovered beside him again, less like a person now, more like a fragment of star stuff shaped by will. "You've passed the Citadel. That was the test. You didn't seize control. You let go." Juno turned toward the others. "I saw thousands of versions of myself. Tyrants. Cowards. Ghosts. Heroes. All of them trying to shape the future. All of them failed." Kay raised an eyebrow. "So what now?" Juno looked past her, and the void began to paint itself. Cities unfurled like petals. Rivers of light carved valleys through digital skies. Skyscrapers grew from thought, shaped not by corporations or kings, but by collaborative dreaming. A new world, imperfect and raw, but free. We let the world right itself, Juno said softly. Not with control, but with consent. But then, the sky fractured. Across the white horizon, a long rip tore open, spilling shadow. The collapse wasn't done. It hadn't been a virus. It had been a pattern. A fallback. An instinct of entropy written into the base code of humanity. And now it surged forward, a storm of black fractals and blood-red logic lines, howling with the voices of every failed utopia. Nyx pulled Kay behind her. It's bleeding through. If this is his mind, the storm's not just a threat to Juno. It's going to override us all. Reed's eyes went wide. It's hijacking the rewrite. Trying to anchor itself into the seed of the new world. Juno stepped forward, alone. No, he whispered. Not this time. He clenched his fists, and from his palms burst twin spirals of radiant code, wrapping around him like armor. The Echo Child merged into his core, releasing a final whisper. You carry us now. Become more than a node. Become the narrator. And Juno rose, burning with intent, into the heart of the storm. Chapter 18, Storm of the Self. Juno ascended through the torn sky, a silhouette of radiance against the fractal storm. His body no longer obeyed gravity. Instead, it responded to will, to meaning. With every breath, he peeled back layers of the collapse, not fighting it with weapons, but with truth. Below, the newly forming landscape twisted in sympathy. The Dream City's towers bent and swayed, caught in the metaphysical winds. Streams of light turned to ink. Buildings flickered between solid steel and ghostly symbols. Nyx held the line, a blade of syntax humming in her hands. Kay stood back to back with her, rifle aimed into the fracturing void, firing rounds of concept-stabilized data. Reed projected firewall domes, each a glowing lattice of resistance, even as his code began to fray around the edges. He's triggering the kernel, Reed shouted. This isn't a Citadel anymore. It's a source point. He's rewriting from the ground up. Juno hovered, wrapped in a corona of living script. Each line etched into his skin pulsed in sync with the network's pulse. His memories cascaded before him, his childhood, his trauma, the first time he hacked an ether gate. All of it poured out into the storm, not as vulnerability, but as foundation. I am not perfection, he said. I am iteration. I am entropy in dialogue. The collapse screeched in response, a billion anti-patterns howling with rage, coalescing into a single monstrous form. A god of failure. It was made of broken dreams, lost systems, corrupted love, betrayal algorithms. Its face was a mirror of Juno's, cracked down the center. The monster spoke, you cannot save them. Every cycle ends in collapse. Every rewrite rots. Juno didn't answer with words. He surged forward, fists outstretched, and collided with the shadow. The impact rippled through the simulation. Time stuttered. In that clash, past met future. Code screamed. Light and darkness braided into one another. Around them, everything became choice. Kay and Nyx held each other, whispering their names. Reed dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. And then... silence. The collapse evaporated like breath on glass. The void cleared. The world reassembled. Juno stood at the center of a nascent city, surrounded by his allies. The buildings were smaller, simpler, but stable. Trees grew. People emerged. Real or not, it didn't matter. The choice to build was real. He looked at his hands. The code markings faded. It's not perfect, he said. But it's ours. And the new world blinked open its eyes. Chapter 19, The Quiet Horizon. The storm had passed, but the echoes lingered. Beyond the reborn skyline of the Citadel, a soft dusk fell over the city, neither digital nor natural, but something in between. A palette of data pink clouds and glitching stars painted the sky, as if the code itself was learning to breathe again. Juno sat alone at the edge of a rooftop garden, overlooking the fractured remnants of the old world stitched into the foundations of the new. The greenery beneath him wasn't real, yet it grew. Each blade of grass hummed gently with feedback, thriving not from sunlight, but consensus. Enough minds believed in it, so it persisted. Footsteps approached. "Nix. You gonna pretend you're a god now?" she asked, crouching beside him. Juno shook his head. "I almost lost myself. I saw what it wanted me to become. All that power, it was seductive. But you didn't." He gave her a sideways glance. "Didn't I? This city came from me, Nix. From us. But what does that mean?" Nix plucked a glitch bloom from a bush nearby. The petals shimmered like crystalline code. "It means we get to decide what matters next." Kay joined them, dragging a crate of salvaged equipment. "Reed's decoding the last fragments from the node core. Says there's still data buried deep in the drift. Things older than even the collapse." "Let it rest," Juno said quietly. "We need time to rebuild. To breathe." Reed's voice crackled over their combs. "Not just yet. The Citadel, the new one, it's broadcasting. Something's answering." Juno stood. The horizon flickered faintly. A signal. From beyond the known regions of the net. Distant. Alien. Curious. Nix looked to him. More ghosts? Or something watching the ghosts? As the team gathered, the quiet stretched. For the first time, there was no running, no fighting, no collapse looming. Only the endless horizon, and a question. What comes after survival? Juno smiled faintly. We build. And this time, we build it together. And from the garden atop the Citadel, the new world began to whisper its first true stories into the void. Chapter 20, Beneath the Blooming Code. The garden atop the Citadel became a sanctum not just for Juno and his companions, but for others who had survived the collapse. They arrived in trickles, rogue archivists, scavenger clans, orphan data ghosts. Some were human. Others were post-human constructs, seeking purpose in a world that had been rebooted. Juno stood at the center of the reconstruction hub, surrounded by scaffolds of both steel and light. Architectaeus hummed softly, shaping structures guided not by logic alone, but by shared emotional consensus. A city was rising. Real, imagined, symbiotic. Kay led the logistics network. Nix trained a new generation of boundary runners. Reed had taken up the task of archiving every surviving scrap of history, not to preserve the past, but to understand it. But something felt unsettled. That night, as Juno wandered the perimeter grid of the new Citadel, he felt it in his code. A low vibration. A kind of listening. You feel it too? Nix whispered, emerging from the shadows. He nodded. Like something's watching. Not hostile. But aware. The sky flickered. Above them, a ripple tore across the stars. For a brief second, constellations rearranged. Symbols not of Earth, nor net runic. Alien glyphs pulsed and vanished. Is it a signal? Kay asked, joining them with wide eyes. Reed appeared behind her, holding a crystalline shard of refracted code. It came through the drift. Deeper than anything I've ever seen. Some kind of gate. Juno touched the shard. It shimmered and opened a small vision. A massive chamber suspended in impossible space. Floating architecture shaped by language. And in its center, an entity. Neither digital nor organic. Watching. Waiting. I think the collapse wasn't the end, Juno said quietly. It was the test. The shard snapped closed. Silence returned. Below the Citadel, new roots took hold in the data stream. Flowers bloomed in code. The city hummed with fragile hope. But far beyond the net's known edges, something stirred. End of Episode 9. Teaser, Episode 10, Beyond the Signal. In the wake of Rebirth, the Citadel's light reaches into the dark. But as ancient watchers awaken, the past may return in a form no one expected. Secrets buried beneath code, civilizations lost in the drift, and a truth too vast for one mind to hold. Next time, what if humanity wasn't the first to dream the net into being?